Hey, what's up, y'all? This is your girl Diamond. Oh gosh, I am the executive director of Black Trans Women's Inc. I am also the host of Marsha's Play podcast. I try to go live every Friday at 7 o'clock. And yeah, here we are. Today we are going to talk about barriers and conditions of trans people that can lead to their harm, you know, and I recently finished a consulting. Well, I'm still doing a little bit. I recently um, did a consulting job with the Insider, and they did the deepest dive, the deepest dive that I have ever seen. When I'm talking about, they put money, they put staff, they put time into digging into the deaths of trans people and to see what kind of disparities we can find within the numbers. So they created a database and they hired me to be a consultant. I was telling y'all about this a couple of months ago, and we are finally finished. And we finally have a database, and we not only examine the actual killings, we also examine the suspects and like the people who actually did the murder, and the criminal justice system and the results of the cases. So we dug into the cases: who was convicted, who wasn't convicted, who was able to plead, who was charged with hate crimes, who was it? Did they was it sex work? Was it? We went into everything and created a database and came up with actual data. You know, a lot of people say some things, a lot of say some things that they think, but the numbers don't lie. And there are so many amazing findings that we were able to find with the database, and it went live yesterday. And I wanted to share with y'all because I've been doing this work for a really really long time, and so now, even before trans was a trend, and so now that people are actually putting money behind doing things that I think are powerful, of course I'm going to share it with my audience. So of course, so I am going to put the link in the this is why you is a moderator, Brandon. This is why you is a moderator. You is already on it. That's what I'm talking about. Per usual. Thank you. So Brandon just shared the insider database, and yeah, it is so many numbers. So I want to kind of go over some of the findings that we actually found, and I'm gonna some things that me scouring through the numbers and seeing that I noticed, and I want y'all to kind of help me discuss it. But before we get started with that, make sure y'all thumbs up if you're in here watching. I see 10 people. Yeah, thanks for the two who did. Um, Make sure that hey, Adrena, hey, make sure that you turn on your notification bell. I usually don't do this because I've been a YouTuber for so long, and these things because of the racist setup of the algorithm, some of these things don't matter. But let me just say this: for you to be able to know when I go live or when I post a video, when I do whatever, you have to click the notification button. And in my analytics, I'm able to see what percentage of my folks have done it. And the average is like 5. And I'm like at 3.7. I want to get to 5. I want to be at least average. In some part of my life, I like to be above average, but at least part. So make sure you cut on the notification bell, at least for the lives, because I know a lot of times people hit me up and say, "Oh, I didn't catch it," or "Oh, sometimes I don't know. It doesn't do whatever it does." I don't know all that, but make sure you click the bell so you know when I go live. Also, what has been going on? What's been going on with y'all? Like before we get started, I see Alex. Hey, Alex. Miss Polk, how are you, my beautiful sister? How have y'all been faring? I am recently coming back from the amazing Maldives. Me and my gay mother went to the Maldives for her birthday trip, and I talk about it a little bit more in detail on Marsha's Plate podcast. This past episode on Thursday, so check that out. Link is in the bottom. We went on this amazing trip to the Maldives. I loved the views, everything about the nature, all of that was amazing. But I learned from this trip that I do not like secluded locations. I think secluded locations is for people who are, married in relationship, want some kind of romantic getaway with your love and your partner. I think it's amazing like that, but for a girlfriend trip, no, it's not cute. It's beautiful, but a secluded island is not cute. It's boring as hell. Beautiful, but boring. And so I've learned as a single woman, um, you know, I need more social. I need to be able to get into the culture of where I'm at, get into the culture of the people, get into the culture of the food. The food at this resort was nasty. Nasty. And so, and I didn't have, because it's a secluded island, you don't have Uber or DoorDash or anything to save you from the nasty food. You just kind of stuck. Hey, Marissa. Um, Come on, New York. New York is cold during this time. Oh my God. Um, but yeah. Um, what else? What else? Okay, another thing that I want to do. I want to do something really, really special for a couple of trans people for the holiday season. So I will be using these lives for um, from now until like Christmas time to fundraise. I want y'all to help me give. I want it to be like four. I want it to be like 3 to 4 trans people. I want to be able to give 3 to 4 trans people like $500. That's the goal. Um, Marsha's Plate, my podcast is going to match whatever I'm able to fundraise, um, up to 250 each person. So if I raise 250, I'm going to match 250. So I want to do that for each person. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So yeah, that's what I want to do because I want to kind of give back for the holiday. Just because, that's the season of giving and having fun. So, yeah. So, yeah, that's what I want to do. And so that would include any kind of giving. All of ways to donate is in the link, is in the bottom, in the show notes of everything that I do. So I will calculate what people give and then be transparent about showing you what we got so we can match and then bring the people on. I think I'm gonna do a application because I want people to apply for it so I can understand what's going on so I can kind of see who might need something and pick who it is that I want to give to. Does that make sense? Like I want to create like a Google Doc so I can see who is in need and pick like 3 people. So so yeah, there's that. Y'all are quiet today. Hey, Darcel. Mm, 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 mm. Let's see. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. You can there my PayPal, just so I can be able to show y'all. I want it to be easier for me to show y'all. So Cash App, Diamond Styles, DIAMONDSTYLZ. My Venmo is at Diamond Styles, DIAMONDSTYLZ. My PayPal is the same thing. It should be all. I think it should be all in the link in the bottom. Let me see if I can. Diamond Styles too. So I just want to be. If you those three will make it easier for me to show y'all how much we have raised, so I can just screenshot it and do it. That those three, PayPal and PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App will be better. You should do a question and answer. What do you mean by that? Oh, then when I was in the Maldives, I scratched the shit out of my leg. Look at this shit, y'all. Y'all see this? Look how far that goes down. This scar right here. Isn't that crazy? It it hurts like hell, but it's healing. I was trying to take. First of all, this is a new phone. I got a new phone, and um, I was trying to take pictures, child, and I was there was this little ledge. It was by the water. It's like this little thing. Let me see if I can show y'all. No, no, I forgot. I'm talking about the phone because the phone got wore out in the water. So I'm on this little ledge and I'm trying to get this picture. And I'm like, ooh, I'm trying to get this picture. And it's like this rock that don't got no water on it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna set my phone on here because I didn't have no. It just was in the moment, just doing it in the moment. And where I was standing at, it didn't seem like the water was deep. It seemed like everywhere else I was walking, the water was fucking shallow. But this water, you can't really because it's so clear. You can't really tell how deep it is. You can't really tell. And so I put the phone. I was trying to put the phone, set the, you know how you lean, you know how you do this. Let me show you. Let me see if I can do it on here. You know how you lean the phone up against the wall like that and it can take a picture? That's what I was trying to do because I didn't have no tripod and I was just trying to take it in the moment. So I was trying to lean the phone and I was on this little ledge and it's like this much water on the ledge. But what I don't clock because it just looks like it's a ledge is there is algae all over this ledge. And so when I bend down to um to put the phone, baby, I slip on this algae and fall back in the water. And I'm thinking, okay, it's not gonna be deep because I've been walking through this fucking water all this fucking time. And so I put my hand up with the phone, thinking that like my butt is gonna fall in the water, and the phone is gonna be up in the air without getting wet. Child, that water was so motherfucking deep. My whole body went in the water, and my motherfucking hand with the phone in it. Whole body submerged in the water and came back up. My phone was gone. Totally gone. Lost my pictures. Any pictures that I hadn't posted yet. If you on Instagram, I posted some pictures and some video. I did like a cute ass drone video. It was so cute. It was so cute. It only cost me like $35 to do the little drone video. Because they had like a photographer on the island and he does regular photography and he does this little drone. So we had did that and we it was 70, but we split it. Me and my gay mom. And so but the pictures that I took that day that I didn't get to post yet, I lost them. And it was so fire. It was so those pictures was my favorite. Even out of all the ones that I had took, the ones that I lost were my motherfucking favorite. There was this abandoned boat, like this rustic looking boat. And on the side of the boat, it said glass bottom. And I put my body in front of the glass part so you couldn't see the glass. So it just said bottom. So I was sitting there real sexy next to this abandoned boat, and the sea is behind you, looking sickening, and it says bottom on there, baby. It was so fly, but I lost the picture. It was so fire, so fire, so fire. But tried to do the whole put the phone in the rice, all the little shit online that they tell you to do with water damage. None of that shit worked. So I had to go get a new phone. And for some reason, my backup, my photos usually back up like somewhere like on the iCloud, not iCloud because I don't have an iPhone, but whatever the Samsung version is. Um, but I didn't set that up. I set up my Google photos because I'm more of a Google girl anyway. So I set up my Google photos, and unfortunately with Google, it doesn't back up until you go to the app. So if you go to the app every day, then it backs up. So I hadn't been to the app that whole day because I was running around on the beach in the sun, bathing suit, da, 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 da. So I hadn't went to the app like I normally do. So everything from that day hadn't backed up. But everything backed up from the day before because I had went to the app. So I lost those pictures. Pissed me off. Oh, but we'll work it out. But I worked it out. I mean, I got a new phone. Yeah. But other than that, it was a pretty good trip. So let me go to this. Some of these numbers we can really explore this database. So did y'all go to the link? Did y'all check it out and see what it gave? Alrighty. So there's a link for the Insider database. Thank you, Brandon, for anybody who's just joining us. So I want to go over some basic things that we found. So we know in 2016, one of the reasons why I started my podcast was in 2016 when Trump and Hillary was running for office. Even before then, like when the in the primaries, when the people were the Democrats were deciding who was going to be the front runner of the primaries. This was a time 2015, gay marriage had just passed. Um, one of the reasons why one of the reasons why I started my podcast was because every time they were talking about, this was the first time that they were mentioning trans issues, trans people on the main national political stage. Prior to that, when they were talked to candidates, or if they're trying to figure out if is a candidate um, progressive enough, what they were asking them was, "What is your stance on gay marriage?" That was the litmus test at the time. Prior to it passing in 2015, the litmus test was, "What is your stance on gay marriage?" That was the peak issue for LGBT people. Now, as a Black trans woman that comes from poverty, um, that just lives a different life than maybe a middle class trans woman, a middle class white trans woman, um, or a white trans woman that came. She might be not be middle class now that she transitioned, but who come from middle class life. Marriage, that wasn't something that was just like pressing concern in my book. What was pressing concern to me was housing, work discrimination, being that I had been fired 2 or 3 times for being trans. And I was living in states that didn't have gender identity as a protected class Indiana, Mississippi, Texas. And so, um, healthcare, job insecurity, housing insecurity, all those things, food insecurities, all of those things were way, way more important and dire issues when I was coming up as a trans woman. Not during 2015. I was pretty stable in that situation. In that situation. Um, what is? I thought I had blocked you. You were not. Let me continue. That. George, you know I don't play with you. Um, for some reason, Brandon, are you able to block him? Because for some reason, it's not letting me do it. I'm speaking this weird ass thing. Oh no, I did it. Bam. Perfect. There you go. Anyway, he's one of them weird people that always got some weird shit to say. Anyway, so during the 2016 election, what was the issue then was bathroom bills. There was a lot of bathroom bills coming up. Like the right wing and Republican people was like coming and do just trying to come just grasping at straws. Gay marriage had passed, so that wasn't something they was worried about. So now we got to what's the next frontier? And trans people was the next frontier. So they started mentioning us, talking about the bathroom bill and kind of being weird about the kids. And it started to be strange. It started to be weird. It started to be strange because as somebody, who had transitioned really, really early on, um, what and having more dire issues than the bathroom, it felt like every time they put a mic in somebody's face, it was a white person, it was a white trans person, it was somebody who didn't live in the socioeconomic constraints that the girls around me were living. Okay. Now, at that time, I was working and I was doing my thing and da 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 da. So I was stable, but there was people around me because I was organizing. Those people around me who were not in stable situations, and bathroom was the least of their issues. It was way more issues that we should be talking about. But every time they put a mic in to a white trans person's face, it was bathroom, 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 bathroom. So I wanted to start my podcast, and that's what I did. And so, but in 2016, that's when the trans issue just started to be a peak political thing. People used to share their opinions about trans people. It it's like the light was it went from gay marriage and then like Sauron from Sauron's eye from Lord of the Rings. It's like boom, like the spotlight went directly to trans people and people had all these opinions. And then we started to see a cultural rise of anti-trans rhetoric, a rise in the actual legislation that they were trying to get passed. It was like over 270 legislations across the country that were anti-trans, anti-LGBT, anti-trans in sports, anti-criminalizing parents who were supporting their children. So many ranges. They were just trying everything. They have been on this whole battle with attacking trans people. And it was a national cultural thing that was happening from the shows that we're watching. Everybody had their opinions about trans people, and this has just been on the rise since 2016, 2015, on and on and on, all until now. And what we found in the study is that transgender homicides have increased. Homicides targeting trans people have spiked and doubled between the time that from 2017 to 2021, but it has been increasing since 2015. It has shot up record numbers in 2021. This year, it seems like it's gone down just a little bit. I think we were at 35. It was like 51 last year. in regards to homicides. And so what this shows is that the rhetoric that the culture is having about trans people affects how frequently people are willing to harm us in in the world. It seems kind of obvious to me. It seems like it would be an obvious thing because we saw this when it comes to um, gay people during the AIDS epidemic. There was an uptick in harm during that time because the rhetoric around gay people was that this was a punishment to them in the beginning. This was a punishment to them. So it gives an air of you deserve punishment. If God is punishing you, why wouldn't I, as a mere mortal on the earth? If God feels like I can punish you, then of course I can do whatever I want to you because God is punishing you. Do you see how that people can make that connection and make that rationale, even subconsciously? And so I feel like we're seeing this. We're seeing we can go even further back to when like yes, the double-edged sort of visibility. Absolutely. But we can even go back to when the issue of black folks was really changing and really getting to its peak. Lynchings was happening way more than they were happening before the time when they were now demonizing black people. Now that we're Jezebels, and now that we're not the nice mammy that they wanted us to be, taking care of the kids and the nice Negroes who wanted slavery. You remember when they couldn't sell that narrative no more. Our Negroes love to be slaves. You remember when they were trying the propaganda that slaves love to be slaves? And it was actually a mental illness that they created. What is it? Drapetomania. Is that what it's called? I can't remember. Something about it starts with a DARP. Drapetomania, where slaves trying to run away was a mental illness. That was hilarious. But there was a peak time when lynches was kind of going crazy when black people were really, really trying to come up out of the straits and come up out of the getting a little bit of political power and coming up out of the hold of slavery. So we see this now that we have become enemy number one when it comes to politically. Um, we are seeing an uptick in our murders. Of course, a water is wet moment is that we found that most homicides targeted Black transgender women. um, I mean, that's a water is wet moment. We know we didn't need to put no money and create a database for us to figure out who was being targeted in these trans murders. Now there were Latinx, they were second, whites were third. Um, yeah, that's just that's just what it was. Not many men, but there were some men. Not many, but even in the little small portion of the men who were murdered, trans men, black people dominated. Um, all right, so we know that black transgender women dominated the murders. But what we also found out, this is really, really interesting. What we also found out is that when it comes to murder convictions, when the victim was a white trans person, when the conviction happened, the victim was a white trans person. So racism is gonna racism. So imagine black trans women dominate the killings. But when a white trans person is murdered, they get the justice more often. That the people who killed them get, you know, they get sentenced and convicted. But when it comes to us, we're either unsolved or motherfuckers is getting off when it comes to our murder. Isn't that crazy? But this is why you need data, so you can prove these kind of racial disparities happening even within the system that is supposed to be giving us justice, that is supposed to be set up to give us justice, but we know that that's a crock of shit. Another element that we already knew. Oh, I feel like this is a water is wet moment. I've been preaching this for about 15 years. I've been saying this. The most of transgender deaths are not by some stranger person, some person that they're tricking, some person that they like, ooh, I'm gonna try to trick you into thinking mm, that I'm something that I'm not. No, it is people who they know. They are not being murdered by the hands of strangers. We found that most of the killers or suspected killers were known to their victims. So, intimate partner violence, clients, people who know their tea, not some random person, um, not some random person or some situation where they're like, "Ooh, I'm tricking them," which people love to say, which people love to give that narrative. Another, I don't want to say this is surprising because I think this is something that is pretty common around like general population, but it's still interesting. Most of the suspects were young men, not most of the suspects being men is pretty common, but young men in their teens and their 20s. That low of a number did surprise me. I thought that it would be, I thought that it would be, you know, late 20s, early 30s as far as the age of the killers. Um, but most of the killers are in their teens and in their 20s. That should not be surprising to me. And you know why? Because, brains are still developing, maturity level is still developing, late teens, early 20s. Um, Also, I think that is the time, that is the vulnerable stage of boys in their homosocial um circle. Homosocial meaning same sex circle, um, where they are vulnerable to other people's opinions, and because of that, the shame around dealing with trans women, the shame around homosexuality, and the shame around any of that, I think that they are more vulnerable to that kind of shame that can push them to harming a trans woman that they are being intimate with. When we think about Brayla Stone in um, Arkansas, like he literally said that he murdered her because he thought that she was going to expose their relationship. And he was 17. I mean, she was 17 and he was 20. I think he was 20. I think he was a little, maybe 19. I think he was 2 years older than her. Um, Another element, when we think back to, I think this was 2016, I can't remember exactly, but um, Ty Yearwood out in Tyler, Texas, the trans woman who was killed by her boyfriend. Now, she was trying to leave him alone, and she was telling him that she couldn't be in a she no longer wanted to be in a down low relationship anymore. And she was tired of the down low situation between them. So she wanted to end the relationship and try to be with somebody else after 2 years of trying to wait for him to get come out, not necessarily I don't want to call it come out the closet, but y'all know what I mean. She, we've been dealing with each other for 2 years, and You're making behind closed doors, you're making it seem like we're going to eventually be more, and then you're not. And so I have to get to the point where this ain't going nowhere. So I need to leave it alone. And so he kills her. Her his name is, I think it's Charles Champion. I know his last name is Champion, but I think I can't remember his first name, but last name is Champion. I think it's Charles Champion. Um, and he told the police that he didn't know that she was trans and she was trying to trick him. But the investigators, the detectives, and everybody went in his phone and her phone and found kick messages for 2 years of them being in a relationship. So lying. So this is just one of those crazy situations. Then when we think about Joshua Valum, who murdered Mercedes Thompson. Mercedes was in a relationship with him for 2 years. He had met her mother. He had met her sister. He would come over to her house where she stayed with her mom and be laid up with her, knowing they knew he knew her tea. He knew her tea. It was all out in the open. So imagine. I want y'all to listen to this story. So Joshua, they lived in separate towns, and so he would come and hang out, help her mother with the groceries coming in, like really be like a boyfriend in this circle with her, open, all this kind of stuff, not hiding her, hanging with my family, all that kind of stuff. But in his town, he's a part of this little Latin gang situation. And they found out that she was a trans woman and they confronted him about it. Now, she doesn't know this is happening. Mercedes doesn't know this is happening. She confronted him about it. I mean, the gang members confronted him about it. And he says, "No, that's not a trans woman." He lies and said it's not a trans woman. And so that makes them eager to prove that it is a trans woman, even though he already knows. Even though he already knows. But he's thinking if he lied, they'll just let it go. But because of how homophobia works and how men police each other's sexuality in their circles, they're not gonna let that go. They're gonna try to prove to you that this is a trans person, a trans woman. Since you don't know, oh, she must be tricking you. Let's prove that this is the truth. And so what Joshua does, instead of getting his shit together and saying fuck it, Joshua kills Mercedes. Now imagine you've been in a relationship with a dude. Now she's a young girl now. Now trans women who are in the chat. I feel like when we're young, we more susceptible to these niggas. um, and I know cis women are too, but I think trans women are in a particular scenario because they can't love us out loud. They can love y'all out loud. I think one of the closest things, um, one of the closest demographic of cis women that kind of relate to this is fat girls. Fat girls kind of talk about my nose is itching because of this light. I'm gonna have to turn it down. I told y'all why. Um, um, fat girls. Fat girls talk about this a lot. They talk about men um, wanting to sleep with them, but not wanting to be with them in public. Um, but even them, you see dudes dating fat girls. So I think it's a different scenario. Not to play oppression Olympics, nothing like that. But I think it's just a different scenario because they can love y'all out loud. Hey, Diamond, you look thinner. I am thinner. I am. I have been going to the gym. I've lost about 50 pounds. I'm under 300. I was like 345. So when I first started, and I have lost about 50 pounds. Anyway, thank you for noticing. So, So yes, so imagine you are a young woman, trans woman in particular, and you are dating this guy, and he is meeting your mom. He's not trying to be down low. He's coming over, hanging with you, spending time for 2 years with you, meeting your sister. Your mama like him, your sister like him, and 2 years into the relationship, he meets you somewhere. You don't know what's going on. You don't know where this is coming from. But this dude that you love, that you've been in a relationship with, is about to kill you. Im- Imagine her thought and surprise the moment she realized this motherfucker is about to kill me. And I didn't even do nothing. I don't know where this is coming from. Why this person who I love is, oh, this get me emotional. I would be so devastated in that situation. Just out the blue, you getting into it with a dude, and maybe he's some kind of domestic violence situation, and it escalate too far, and whatever. But you don't know this is coming because everything has been all good. I just can't imagine the surprise and the gag that would be as a young woman in love with a man, and he is coming to talk to you, and he end up murdering you. But luckily he gets convicted. And but this is what I'm talking about. I think these scenarios and these situations around shame makes people, makes guys, young guys, more vulnerable. And this is, I'm not justifying anything they do. They should be you know uh, I'm I'm an abolitionist in theory, but I also feel like until we abolish the prisons, lock them motherfuckers up. But that was a surprise that the murderers, the age of the murderers was quite young, late teens, early 20s, out of all of them. Um, we found that trans people were killed at higher rates in states that passed anti-trans laws. This goes back, except for Maryland. They had a high number of murders, but they didn't have a lot of anti-trans law. Excuse me, a lot of anti-trans laws. But the highest ones were Louisiana, Missouri per capita, Mississippi, Maryland, South Carolina. By sheer number, Texas was one. Um, Another element that I thought was interesting. Now, y'all tell me what y'all think about this. Y'all quiet today. Is this because it's a heavy topic? Um, okay, so we know that men dominate the numbers when it comes to um, the murders. Okay, the murderers. We know it's usually men who are enacting the murder, who are enacting the violence. Okay, but if you take the men out and just leave the women who killed the trans person, because there's some of them too, some cis women that killed the trans person in this database. If you just look at those cases where it's women, every single one of them got off with self-defense. No matter what the circumstances was. Like they could come in with a gun attacking. One of them was a mama who killed both of her trans children. One was a non-binary trans person and one was a trans woman. A mother killed both of them. One, a father had killed his trans daughter. Well, I'm talking about the women. I'm sorry. One was a domestic violence situation. I, that didn't involve the person who was the murderer. No, it wasn't like they were together and it was a domestic violence. It was a couple that she got involved. Strange. Darling, I don't know how they got to that point. And sometimes the we would some in the we would have to sue the police to get the information, and sometimes we will win, and sometimes we wasn't. This has been we've did this research since August. We started in August, and we've been kind of some situations the police they were easy, and then some situations the police were hard, and sometimes we would have to sue them to get the information, and sometimes that we it wouldn't work because the the case was ongoing. So when a case is ongoing, they're not required to give us the information as the press. Excuse me. So sometimes we couldn't get the information, and that was one of the cases where we couldn't get all the details, but there was enough for us to understand what, based on witnesses and the witnesses that were talking, unacceptable. Hello, hello, hello. Who else? The There was a scenario. This was a quite interesting scenario. There was a scenario where um ask me later, Justin, when I open up the floor to question other topics. Um there was a scenario where a trans woman was coming to hook up with a dude, a sexual hookup, and um, the dude thought that she was coming alone, but she didn't. She came with her friend, but in order for him not to see her friend, she told her friend to um, hide in the trunk of the car. And so the friend did it. She gets in the trunk of the car and she's hiding. The guy and the other trans woman hook up in the car, but in the scenario now, trans women, I want y'all to chime in on this and tell me if you've experienced this because I've have, and I know many of my friends have. Um, they mess around, and after the nut happens, his mentality about messing around, the shame around messing around, turns him into this violent person, this angry, violent person, because now he has done the act. Now he's shamed of it. And in that moment, he murders this girl. But he doesn't know that the girl is in the trunk, that there's a girl in the trunk listening to everything going on. And he gets off. Bitch, gag me. He gets off because the girl in the trunk couldn't couldn't identify him because she was in the trunk. But the police officers could make the connection with the dude in the case. Like in the communication. So it doesn't make sense that she's telling you what she hears going on. You make the connection that this guy just decided to hook up with this person, and this person ends up dead. But you can't make the connection. You can't use this person as a witness. Baby, I was so over it reading that story. I was so over it. Now, another element of some of these cases is these cases of people who are we couldn't, and a lot of them we didn't put into the database because we just didn't feel they were a part of the database. Let me give you an example. So there were some people who it was reported that they were trans people, but when you look into the data, when you look into the data, it didn't the circumstances, you can tell that this is not a trans person. So there was I want y'all to tell me what y'all think about this story because this is funny as hell. Which I thought an ear witness would still suffice. I agree too. Um, so this white man, a white man, somebody who is clearly a white man, dresses up as a girl. He meets these three young college football players. He invites them to his house. Tierra, I remember the story, but now that I was able to get all the tea, the reporting didn't really give you all the tea. I was able to see the documents. Okay, so he invite these three attractive football players back to his house. He offers them money to suck their peen. The three dudes, because they're together, they like, we don't know. This is kind of gay. This kind of weird. This kind of da 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 da. And so they leave. One of the dudes comes back, gets his peen sucked for $50. He leaves. Second of the dudes, dude number two, comes back to the person's house and leaves. The second dude goes back to the first dude and says, the first dude was like, "Oh, did you get your dick sucked?" The second dude said, "Nah, I think that was a man, dog. I think that was a man." Now, the first time that they leave, all three of the dudes, they said something was weird. They made it seem like something was weird, but this is somebody who is obviously a cross-dressing person. So they said something was weird and leave. But why would you go back? Okay, I want y'all to understand. I want y'all, if y'all can explain to me, if something was weird that made all of y'all three go back. If y'all clocked, if y'all seen this person's picture, there was no way that you couldn't clock because this was a white man. But say y'all clocked the three of y'all clocked. Okay, say whatever. You was acting stupid. Y'all were drunk. I don't know because there wasn't no alcohol involved. But y'all clock and y'all leave. You come back. You get your dick sucked for $50. The other dude come back. The dude number two tells number one, nah, I didn't go through with it because I think that's a man. Dude number one, who got his dick sucked for the $50, went back and killed the crossdresser. He got off with the trans panic defense. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. So y'all can scour through the link. Brandon, will you put the link again? Y'all can scour through the link to see what stuff that y'all found. I thought it would be also a little bit important for me to talk about um, the socioeconomic stuff, that the cultural and socioeconomic stuff that leads to trans people, um, that leads to trans people being more susceptible to intimate partner violence, being more susceptible to violence, being more susceptible to having to be in sex work that can be dangerous and violent. Um, I think I have heard of the Shania Wood situation. I think I have. I have to be refreshed about it, but I think that she was the murderer apparently. So we really didn't go. We was only looking at the murders. Um, but I think I remember the sketchiness of that story. Um, if you have a link, link us to that. Um, so there was a lot of situations. There was two girls on the host roll, Ashanti and Zoe. Zoe Spears, I think her last name was Spears. Zoe saw Ashanti get murdered in front of her, and then Zoe was murdered by a hit man, like a couple of weeks later. And so a lot of people would look at the scenario and say, why did she go back to that same spot? But if you knew her life, not being homeless, and this is where the money is off of Eastern in Maryland. But not, I think it's Silver Springs, Maryland. I think off of Eastern, Eastern Avenue. This is where the money is. This is where the trans host is. And so she was in survival sex work. And if you gotta pay for your hotel, you gotta pay for things, you gotta go and make some money. And it made her more vulnerable to being murdered. And so I want to talk about some of the disparities that trans people can have, and how it can lead to either our criminalization or it can lead to our harms. So let me get my notes pulled up. And some of these barriers are what leads to our overrepresentation when it comes to incarceration. And a lot of these reflect, um, um, have some racial implications as well. So let's talk about barriers with education. So many trans people and gender nonconforming people drop out of high school due to the harassment and the discrimination um, that they suffer on all levels of education. I've talked about it many times. While I was in, if I wasn't a strong person, I would have dropped out of my college situation, honey, the summer before I even started my first my first year. They were trying to throw boiling hot water on me. They were throwing apples and oranges at me. They were fucking being stupid. And so for me, if I wasn't a strong person, if I had to get in the fight my freshman year, if I wasn't a strong person, if I wasn't a fighter, if I was a person who let people push me out of an opportunity or push me out of the situation, and I wasn't strong enough to deal with this shit, I would have had to drop out because it was crazy. We deal with so much bullshit. In high school, I had to deal with I had to fight at least 3 times my whole college every year. You got to beat some ass in the beginning, so the rest of the year they know not to fuck with you. Same thing in junior high. I had to fight. I stabbed somebody in the neck, stabbed somebody in the neck, and got expelled, and had to go to alternative school because they were fucking harassing me. That's just what it was. If I was somebody who was, who just wasn't a fighter or was weak, or, it could lead to suicidal ideation. It can just lead you just having bad grades or dropping out because you don't want to have to deal with the harassment that you're going to deal with in schools. Schools are highly gendered spaces. Students are forced to use gendered bathrooms, gendered locker rooms, where they are frequently subject to violence and persecution. This harassment and discrimination frequently unchecked by school administration and educators. There was many times that my teacher would verbally express that, oh, they wouldn't be doing this to you if you wasn't dressed up like a girl. Ooh, they wouldn't be doing this to you if you act more like a man. Ooh, if you wasn't so feminine, they wouldn't do this to you. And this is teachers. That happened to me many times. Also, there are not mandatory trainings that are not in place for young people. They don't have any law set in place that requires um, the faculty to be educated about trans people or LGBT issues as a whole, or students. They barely want to give sex education, let alone anything outside of heterosexual sex. Any kind of sex education was centering heterosexual sex. It was not centering anything else. Additionally, issues often arise for trans people who who do not have matching identity documents. Like when their identity doesn't match their affirmed gender. The documents doesn't match their affirmed gender, which can limit access to higher education. For trans people, even like even any kind of criminal convictions actually can stop you from getting a name change, which further exacerbate any issues that have to do with your documentation. So that's education. Let's talk about barriers of housing. Barriers of housing. Now, some of these are I feel like should be basic human rights: education, housing, employment, medical care, political participation here in the United States, or it's a democratic government. But yeah, let's talk about barriers in housing. Trans folks, especially young ones, are disproportionately represented in homeless or street-based communities because parents are kicking their children out. Because parents are kicking their children out. There's like 40% of homeless youth are LGBT youth. Tons of studies. These things that I'm saying ain't just, I'm not pulling these numbers out my ass. Like, you can research. We have enough information now. Many people are kicked out of their home for being transgender or gender nonconforming. Often, young trans people are forced to run away from foster care due to like molestation, unsafe practices, unsafe placement, abuse, discrimination, harassment in the foster care system. So even if they're in the foster care system, if their parents kick them out and they go into some kind of guardian home, group home situation, it could be a whole other thing. Same thing with me. I went into a group home because my mama was dealing with abuse, drug addiction. I was put in a group home. luckily for me, I have while I was a feminine queer person, I also was a natural leader. I was a person who, how do I describe that? When I come into space, I lead shit. Like I know how to lead. Like that's just who I am. That's who I am as a person. Um, just as a so I don't want to say manipulative, but that's the only word I can think of right now. Let's say resourceful. I knew when I was younger, I was very, very aware of how to work adults and children in my favor. Very, very aware of how to do that. And so me put me in a space where I am in a group home with amongst children, with a group of staff members. I know how to work the staff and I know how to work the kids. If the staff is doing something that I don't want, I can make the kids get rowdy and run away from the group home. I used to do this all the fucking time. If they were doing something that I didn't want, my punishment to the staff would be I would convince all of the kids in the group home to run away for 2 or 3 days, and that will get them in trouble. Because imagine a state ran loses all their kids. I would do that just to fuck them up. If the kids wasn't doing something that I wanted them to do, I would use the staff against them. This just when I was younger, this just what I would do. So I knew, like, say, I remember this one time. So another element of being in the group home that I try to tell people, it gives the blessing of being in a group home when I was younger. It gives you access to things that I don't think I would have had if I was still staying with my mom. Say my mom, because my mom was a poor black young mother, and so I don't think some of the opportunities that I had in my in my group home life I would have had if I stayed with my mom. So, for example, like going to Disney World or going to going on this rich ass lake, um, on a boat of the auxiliary women who was donating to all the kids in the house. There were certain things that I don't think I would have had access to as a hood little kid staying with my mom. They would take us to these Lake Monroe and this um fly us to this place, go canoeing, go to, just really luxury stuff that I wouldn't have had access to if I was with my mom. I just wouldn't have. And so there was a situation where I was trying to get I wanted to go to these things, and one of the kids was fucking being bad for no reason, like one of them. And so if he would have continued to be bad, we wouldn't have been able to go do this fire stuff. So I was able to convince the staff members so he wouldn't ruin our trip to take him to since he was the only one, to take him to this mental health facility while we were on the trip, since he wanted to ruin, just so he wouldn't ruin it. I think that was be a better scenario for us not to ruin our trip. And so that's literally when I suggested it, that is literally what they did. They took him to Pleasant Run, honey, and he stayed there until we got back. Yes, Evan house. I met Ty at Evan's house. Ty used to fight the staff members. They had to get rid of her. She hit it. She ran away and hit it. But anyway, so I was a different personality when it came to my queerness was something that was a negative, but I was it just was something that I was able to that I could relate and do when I was younger. That was a powerful thing that stopped a lot of issues. That stopped a lot of issues when it comes to me not getting what I want or me getting mistreated as a young queer person. But anyway, it wasn't really. So if I was a different kind of queer person, they would have been running all over me because I saw other queer people that they would run all over, and even queer people who was coming in the house that I was in, I would see them push them out or be extra negative. Like I said, Ty used to have to fight and argue with the staff all the time because it would just they would be doing too much. It would be quite extra. And so there's also very few temporary shelters that are safe for trans people, if they even accept them. I've told this story many times. Y'all know my life reflects a lot of the barriers that come. She was the mother of the house. A lot of the barriers that will come that has come to trans people, I've experienced. Like I remember being homeless coming to Houston. When y'all first met me here on YouTube, I was that was February. So I started my YouTube channel February 28th on my birthday of 2008. Okay. I moved to Houston homeless in 2007, November. So November, December, January, February. So 3 months, 3 months before y'all met me, if you've been here that long. 3 months before y'all met me, I was homeless, moved to Houston. I couldn't stay in the women's shelter because they said I wasn't cisgender. I couldn't stay in the men's shelter because they said I couldn't take these things off. If I can't take these off, I couldn't come. And they not plants, they not fake, so I couldn't take them off because I would be a liability. So couldn't stay at the women's shelter, couldn't stay at the men's shelter. I couldn't stay at the LGBT shelter because I wasn't HIV positive, and their grant covered people who was HIV positive. So the normal infrastructure to help cis people that the state gives money to help cis people when they are homeless, that they could use shelters, shelters for men, shelters for women, shelters for LGBT people, all that structure of the city. I could not have access to because I was a healthy trans woman. I was a that's what it was. That's I couldn't get access to none of these things. And so I had to sleep on somebody's couch. My friend Bray, rest in peace. Um, I didn't know Bray from Adam. I met Bray on a chat in a chat room on Black Planet. She saw my body and was like, "Ooh, I'll let you stay with me if you take me to go see Dr. Molina in Mexico," because she liked my work. The Salvation Army said, "No, ma'am, y'all can't come here." Yes, Salvation Army said, "No, ma'am." Now I did go stay at the fish shelter because of the blessing of my life is that I'm passable enough to where I can get through if I really really need to. And so I did end up for a little bit stay at the fish shelter. So that is barriers of housing. Let's talk about barriers of employment. Um, Barriers of employment. Acquiring and maintaining employment is a challenge for trans people due to discrimination based in gender representation. Oftentimes, trans people are fired when employers discover their identity. If their documents don't match, all of that. Unfortunately, this often leads trans people being outed by employers to fellow coworkers. Oh, I know she looked like a girl, but her ID says Thomas Williams the third, and it's an M on her ID. Come here, let me show you. T out, which leads to increased rates of violence and harassment in the workplace. There's so many times that I have had situations in my jobs where I am doing nothing and people are harassing me or wearing me out, making jokes about me, making the whole work situation uncomfortable. And even when it's not my fault, the supervisors will say, I'm going to fire you because I can't fire everybody on my team for this one person. This is a reflection of my life. So we recently got included in the term sex start to include gender identity in 2020, June the 8th. The Supreme Court voted in our favor that trans people are a protected entity. We are a protected entity, and we are protected by the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Anti-Discrimination Act, that whatever that y'all know I'm talking about. That says you cannot discriminate against race, sex, orientation, race, sex, um, religion, all that stuff. Y'all know what I'm talking about. We are included and protected in that act. That passed. That determination was passed in 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, on June 8th. And so most of my life, I did not have those protections. So when I would go to a court go to a lawyer, they would say, actually, we're in the process, like ACLU, we're in the process of getting gender identity protected, but we're not there yet. And so you really don't have a legal leg to stand on if you're trying to sue them and you're in an at-will state like Texas, or you're in a state that doesn't protect you. Now, Illinois, if you're in Illinois, luckily for you, um, the Illinois Human Rights Act was passed to prevent the discrimination in employment, which is, which was cool in Chicago. However, even when these laws are passed, holding employers accountable for employment discrimination is difficult because it's hard to prove, and the inaccessibility of the legal system when it comes to attorneys. Finding a really good attorney, it's hard for a trans person who don't got tons of capital to give them and pay them. These people ain't free. You got to work your fist sometimes. That is true. You definitely do. All right, so let's talk about barriers of medical care. For those who have medical care, health care, now remember, this is if you have health care. That's an economic barrier in its own. Most trans people, transgender related medical care is specifically not covered by the health insurance companies. We're talking about barriers to medical care. It is specifically not covered by health insurance companies. It is difficult to find doctors that understand trans related health needs and who don't discriminate against trans people. And so that kind of discrimination that can happen can make trans people vulnerable in medical settings. So many times people come soon as you I told you I haven't had really negative experiences. I know some people who have, but me personally, I haven't had really negative. And I think it's because of my passability. But I remember I had got sick in years ago, I think it was like 2004 or 5. And I had went to the hospital, child. They kept bringing they they kept bringing people into my room, or people not bringing people, but different people kept coming to my room to change my trash, and wasn't no trash in their damn thing, just to look at me. Damn, who is blowing me up? Shit, let me put this phone off. So it can be quite awkward. The vast majority of medical providers do not provide gender affirming medical care, and they utilize transphobic standards of care that counteract informed consent models used for non-trans specific medical care. Okay. Not to mention all the barriers as far as psychological evaluations. Now, some of this stuff is shifting and changing. Um, Um, some of the barriers imply that we all have the same needs. We all know there trans people are not a monolith. There's some trans people who don't want surgery. There's some trans people who do. There's some trans people who want surgery, but they can't get surgery because they're either too old or they got a health condition that they can't get surgery like that. There's being on hormones could exacerbate some other kind of health condition. So they can't get on hormones, but they want to transition. So they may not look as passable because they're not on hormones. We all know laser and hair removal can be quite expensive that people can't afford. And so everybody has different needs when it comes to medical needs, when it comes to hormones, when it comes to surgery, when it comes to, and there are physical and medical barriers that we can have, some within the system, the transphobic system, or some things that are just, it's just your natural state. Like I said, there are some people who, because of other medical conditions, they can't go through with hormones and surgeries and da da da, even though they want to. So when we talk about you're not really a excuse me, you're not really a trans person if you haven't been on hormones, or if you haven't had this surgery. Some people cannot do those things, but just like you were before you got on hormones and before you got your surgeries, and you knew you were trans, they knew they were trans too, but they can't get on hormones because they got some medical condition that it doesn't allow them to do it, or they can't get surgery because they're immune compromised or something like that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, we can't really judge people based on that because we don't know what people's situations are. And so that's a call out for our own community. Um, because everybody don't have access to what everybody has access to. I knew trans people who were come from middle class families, who family helped them pay for surgeries and FFS. So they coming out the gate looking like supermodels because they got the nose job, the brow bone shaved down, they got the jawline smaller, they got the implants, they got the body contour because their parents supported them and used their fucking money to help them do that, to help them transition and become this beautiful goddess. I have a friend on a social media friend who her parents really supported her and she's been blessed. Not saying that she don't go through issues, trans issues at all. But she's a white trans woman who parents supported her and had the money to help her get her surgeries early on. She was modeling in Japan and in Europe and she was at a young age. Beautiful girl. You see what I'm saying? And so, but there's some people who don't have that. I had to, I'm going to get pumped because I don't have access to money. So the little money that I do, I'm going to get black market. I'm going to here. Flying all the way to Mexico. Sometimes catching the bus to Mexico. I'm doing what I can do. And there's some people who can do less than what I can. And so you really have to be tender when you're talking about when you are making arbitrary lines of transness. You're not a real woman if you don't have this. You're not a real trans person if you don't have this, because we don't know the barriers that people um you know it's you don't have that, you everybody don't have access to what you have access to, and so you can't create these lines. I always wonder about Crystal LaBeija and how transition because she was bad. A whole 60s goddess with all those barriers. And I also have to say this: 60s bad and 2020 is bad, it's two different bads. Because by our standards now, Crystal wasn't bad. And when we talk about bad, it's like sickening. Is that what you mean? Like a bad bitch? Is that what you mean? By our standards now, Crystal wasn't bad. She was a regular degular. She would, to me, she would be a regular degular trans woman now. A regular degular, because she, if you look at her, she of course she was pretty, but um, because of the advancement in surgery, advancement in many things, she actually would be subpar. But yes, she's going. But that's one of the barriers, scientific barriers. They didn't have access, so there's a whole different level that you had to be on, a rare level that you had to be on to kind of navigate in the 60s and 70s. There's a girl named Marty Pants, um, Marty Marty Pants on TikTok. I follow her. Excuse me. I ate before I came in here. Went to the gym and ate, and it is my stomach can wear me out. Um, and she's transitioned in the 70s, and she's 60 something now, and so she tells a lot of her stories, and it's kind of powerful. Um, we have Miss Major, we have Tracy Jada O'Brien, we have Miss Sharon Grayson. You have a bunch of the girls that transitioned back in the day. One of the, am I gonna be shady? um, how do I say this? It's one thing to be an older trans woman now, and you transitioned when you were older, and it's a whole other thing for you to have been a girl back then. I know some people are getting the respect of being an elder now, but they weren't a girl back then. I know some elders right now that are getting the respect of an elder, but I transitioned before them. But they're older than me. I transitioned in 95. 90, you get what I'm saying? They didn't transition when I transitioned. They were fucking in their 30s in 95 and living as boys. There's a difference between a girl who transitioned in the 60s and now they're still living their lives compared to a person who transitioned older and they just old. Different experience. So I want I want to make sure that's very, very clear. Those are two different experiences. So I'm somebody who I respect everybody. Right. My transition ain't young. I may be a young girl, but my transition ain't young. Some people transition is young, but they old. Let's see. So yeah, as finish talking about medical care. As a result of this kind of pervasive, discrimination within the medical systems and its institutions, trans people face persistent medical problems, including lack of affirming OBGYN care, because we talk about I'm a trans woman, so I'm a lot of times I'm going to be talking about from my own experience and from a trans film experience. We cannot forget trans men. We cannot forget trans men. That's why I want them to be more um sometimes they rest on their past and privilege and just kind of go and try to be under the radar. And I get it for safety, da 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 da. But I wish more of them. There are some. I wish more of them kind of share their experiences more often. Um, and yeah, so there's that. Also, a lot of the girls and guys and siblings, um, Some of the basic medical needs often go untreated or too late due to the lack of access to resources and the fear of facing harassment in the medical setting, including like emergency rooms, hospitals, and doctor's offices. So they would for there are trans people out here not going to get mammograms, not going to get their breast checked, not going to get their uteruses checked, not going to get just things checked because they want to avoid the bullshit that happens in the medical field. And so that, and we all know that getting stuff checked can be can determine if you survive cancer, if you survive anything. You know how many people, because they are scared to go to the doctor, don't go get tested, and they don't know that they're HIV positive until they skinny and until they done had AIDS for a long time. They T cells done went down past 200 long time ago, and then it gets bad, and they go to the hospital and they find out and recover or die. It's dire out here. Also, a little talked about. So we talked about the medical field. We talked about employment. We talked about housing. We talked about education. What also people don't understand that there is a political participation barrier. Okay, when we talk about being able to vote and participate in our democracy, in our process of in the processes of our democracy, due to disproportionate criminalization of trans people, there are some collateral consequences that happens as a result of criminal convictions and incarceration. Do you know it's so many states that don't allow you to vote if you are incarcerated? That's so late and tired. So there are only two states that no matter what you can vote: Maine and New Hampshire. Not New Hampshire, Maine and Vermont. No matter what, you can vote in Maine and Vermont. And it's no coincidence that them is highly white states. It is no coincidence that the two states that anybody can vote no matter what is highly, highly white populated: Vermont and Maine. And the states that you are totally disenfranchised, through criminalization, there's only two states that you are totally disenfranchised: Kentucky and Virginia. Now the other states is either you can't um hey X, the other states are either you can't do it if you're in jail, just different stuff, but it's two that you totally disenfranchise: Virginia and Kentucky. Totally just so the total spectrum is two that no matter what you can vote, no matter what. That's Vermont and Maine. Totally disenfranchisement from the voting process if you are a criminal: Kentucky and Virginia. And everybody else falls in between. What is there to even do in Vermont? Be white. 4 to 7 years after your felony conviction in some states. Yes. Annoying. Um so yes. So yes, people who are incarcerated has barriers to voting. And so as a result, they're not able to influence the political process and change the transphobic laws. Let's connect. And before we get off of the barriers, I want to connect poverty and criminalization. As a result of the barriers that I just was talking about, many trans people and gender nonconforming people live in poverty. There has been studies that says that the average trans person is living off of 15K a year. Now, I want y'all to think about that. Could you live off of 15K a year? Y'all might be privileged in the sense of what y'all where y'all are now. Maybe. I don't know y'all economic situation. But if you are not living off of 15K a year, could you? If you're making more than that, could you live off of 15K a year? I could not. I would be selling this dingaling and this booty hole. Because I could not. This dingling and booty hole would be on the market in this mouth. All holes are ready to be used. That would be me. Now and look, I feel like I'm not no young spring chicken no more. I still feel like I look good, you know. what what um what Whitney used to say on Waiting to Excel, I still look good. But think about if you older or if you the further you are from beauty ideals. The further you are from beauty ideals is the less opportunity you have to sell booty dingaling and all the other kind of stuff. So let me see. 15,000 divided by 54. I mean 52 a week. So that means you're making $288 a week times 4. That's 1,153 a month. People are saying the average one bedroom apartment is $2,000. So if you are paying less than that, you probably are going to be living in the hood. And that's before taxes too. Fresh, you're totally right. That's before taxes. What is taxes? 18%? Is it 18 or 20? Is it like 18, 18, 20, 18, 20? Most of us don't have no kids. Some of us do. So let's do 18. I think it's 18. Yeah, 18%. So that means you living a month off of $945 after taxes. $945. So you gotta find a place to live that's in that 900. Eat. So if you find a place to live that's less that can fit into that, yo, it's gonna be in the hood. And I live in a very economically cheap place. Houston, the cost of living in Houston is very low. You can find a cute little spot for cheap. So, but even in Houston, finding a place that can fit into this budget, you're gonna be in the hood. Place to live, transportation, food, and utilities. Yes, come on now. So this is rent is ridiculous in the hood areas. Rent is ridiculous even in the hood areas. In Texas, you can find some rent for 5, 6, $700, but you're gonna be in the hood, and then that puts you in another but it's gonna be definitely the hood. It's not gonna be kind of nice. It's gonna be bad. um. So yes. So they're usually so on average, a lot of folks are living in poverty as far as the average amount of money that they can live. And don't get me on rule. Low income communities face higher rates of policing and arrest. So many trans women, in particular, trans women of color, are profiled and arrested for prostitution, even when they're not engaging in the sex trade. Like it's been many times that if you out there on the host stroll passing out condoms, passing out PPE, um, you know, needle exchange, anything you doing to reduce harm for sex workers out there. You could get locked up as an activist just for being out there on the host road passing out condoms to reduce harm. What is a safe location range in Houston? I think you can get a place that is safe for $1,000. I think you get I don't know what the word stand for, but PPE is like when you pass out like shit. Like we give bags to people. Like say like during COVID, we would go out to the host roll and or to the homeless people and give out hand sanitizer, mask, um, little snacks, um, just different personal protecting equipment. Yes, thank you, Gigi. Um, thank you. Y'all be knowing stuff. Thank you. I love my people. So just different things that you give out to people that can help them that they might not have access to. Um, um, I just remember hand sanitizers, condoms, lube. We be giving lube, we be giving condoms, we be giving hand sanitizers, we be giving masks. This is during COVID. Um, Before that, it was just like a condoms and wipes and um different stuff. Sometimes if we got a lot of coins, I've seen PPE bags that have stun guns in there. Letting the girls zap zap the clients. So it just depends on what you get donated and all that kind of stuff. I've seen both. And McDonald's, like you gotta. Sometimes it'd be McDonald's, but sometimes it'd be a gift card to a place to eat, all that kind of stuff. So we do. I've done a lot of. I don't do that shit now, y'all. I done paid my dues. Now my team does it. I send my team to do it, but I don't do that. I don't do that no more. I done got bougie. I can't be out there on the host troll at 2 o'clock in the morning handing out condoms. That's for the young girls who ain't paid their dues. Now I'm writing grants so I can get the money to get the to pay for the things that go in the PPE bags. That's me now. um let me see. So yeah, so when we talk about people, even if you're not a prostitute and you on there getting wore out, um, it could be a situation where you're walking. There's been trans women who have been walking and arrested because they're just walking down the street and they're on a known host road, but they're not really prostituting. They just live in the area because the area is expensive. I mean, it's not expensive. So we live in the hood, and usually the host roads be in the hood too. And so I live here, and I get arrested because I'm going into my apartment complex. I've had that, not me personally, but I've seen that happen. Um, Much like racial profiling when it comes to like driving while black, all those kind of situations. Y'all know what I mean? Of course, once they are arrested, trans people are subject to um wait. So another thing, trans people who are restricted from housing, all the things that I talked about earlier, they could be forced in a situation where they could have to do sex work, where they have to boost, where they got to do credit card fraud, where they got to do stunts, where they got to do check fraud, whatever they got to do to survive, to make money. They're put in these situations where they have to create. We already know this. Take the trans thing out of the scenario. We know that socioeconomic statuses of areas low unemployment, not low unemployment, but high unemployment rates affect the crime rate. Like there is a direct correlation between socioeconomic disparity and the crime rate going up. That's anywhere. Take the trans issue out of it. Anywhere where there are socioeconomic problems, it's going to be the crime rate is going to skyrocket. So with trans people, because they're dealing with the same thing or more stuff that cis people are doing, of course they're going to be susceptible to criminality if they have to get money to survive. And these are the only ways in the situation that I can do. I remember, I talk about this. I was a person who was stuck up about prostitution. Growing up, I remember Ty. I remember Ty. Ty was my little sister, so I was very protective of her. And but we weren't that. She was only a year younger than me. But I remember we used to have this dude that would cruise the not to be telling your business, but we used to have this dude that would cruise the gay clubs, and we called him the $20 man. Now I come out the gay club and Ty is jumping out the damn car with the $20 man. Now he is known for all you get to make your little $20 for him. All you gotta do is shake your little booty for him. Like he just want to jack off while you shake your booty. Oh man, not but he probably was in his 40s when we was in our teens. he he was probably yeah, he had to be like in his 40s or 30s when we were in our teens. So I come out the gay club and this bitch is jumping out the motherfucking car with a $20 man. I wanted to choke her. Bitch, why the fuck you need $20? Why the fuck you in the car with him? We will anything we need, we will go steal. Why do you what that $20 is what is that $20 doing? Nothing. If we need some outfits, we gonna go steal them. If we need some fabric, some pads, we gonna go to Joann's and steal them. We gonna do a run out. We gonna do something. We gonna go to the department store, fill bags up, boom, run out the door to the car and zoom out. We Banji girls. This is what we do. What you need $20 for? So I'm giving you and is another element is I come from a church background. I want that to be very clear. There is an inner Karen Clark Sheard in my body. I have to keep her in check. I grew up in the Kojic church. And so in my youth, there was a respectability politic that I had that was ingrained in me from church, even though I was living, a trans queer lifestyle. There was ingrained in me, and sex workers and prostitution and all that was not classy. All of that was not the kind of girls that we wanted to be. That was da-da-da. So there was a judgment. But this is us as teens. This is us as young trans kids, basically trans teens. When you are a teen, you are still a kid. And so there is a certain level of protection that the society still gives you when you are a teen, when you are a teenager, no matter what. I use that real loosely. So let me give you a perfect example. In my younger years, I wouldn't get fired from jobs for being queer because I was a kid. I remember I was working at fucking Wendy's and, I'm coming in fly in girl clothes. And my supervisor was like, "Oh, child, we just trying to give a teenager a job. They didn't turn it into some fucking thing." So I never got fired. When I worked from the time I was 13. There has not been a time that Diamond didn't have no job, even when I was a prostitute. No, that's a lie. There was a time between 2007 when y'all first met me, 2007 to 2008. No, 2009. So 7, 8, 9. So I got a job back in January of 2008. That's when I worked at the airport, if y'all remember. For Continental. From 2007, so that those 3 years I was a full-time escort. But prior to that, I worked at Bath and Body Works. I worked at Wendy's. I worked at the Corner Wine Bar in Broad Ripple, Indianapolis. I worked at IUPUI every summer. I worked at Steak and Shake. I had a fucking job. In my teenage years, I worked at rallies. They call it Checkers in the South, but I worked at rallies. I worked at all these places. I always had a job. But I didn't have any problems when I was younger because I was still a kid and all the adults were treating me like a kid that was just working. Do you see what I'm saying? It wasn't until I became an adult that the shit started to hit the fan. That's when I started to get fired for being trans because I was no longer a kid. I was no longer a kid. I didn't have the child protection that comes with people when you're still a kid. Soon as I turn 18, baby, soon as I turn 18, baby, then the shit start to hit the fan. And so I was in a situation where I was very judgy about prostitution. But baby, life comes at you fast, baby. Life comes at you fast, humbles you, and say, girl. Same what my mom would say, same things that make you laugh or make you cry. You never know what situation you will be in, girl. Laughing at people and looking down on people because the same things, honey. You will be in the same situation. I ain't never go to the $20 man. He was late, but I did have to put my motherfucking ad up. I did have to put my motherfucking ad up and have the latest motherfucking rudest clients. And so, because I was in situation, he gave me more than $20 work. And so yes, these are situations where you can be in these situations where you have to survive. And so you have to rely on these survival type crimes. And so it could include so many things. And there's all kinds of stuff that they can charge you with. They can, especially if you're a sex worker, they can charge you with trespassing, loitering, all kinds of stuff. And once you are arrested, it can lead to a downfall in whatever. It can, in so many things. Look, when we think about Layleen Polanco, the one that got killed because she had an epileptic seizure in Rikers, not because she had an epileptic seizure, because they were neglecting her while she had an epileptic seizure, and she died. Now her family sued, which is ironic. Her family sued and got all of that money, but she was locked up because she couldn't pay a $500 bail, cash bail. So the family that wouldn't pay her cash bail to get her out now got all this money for suing. That annoys me. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, it literally, now she's locked up, losing an apartment, losing wherever she was staying because she can't pay $500. So it can snowball you into even more poverty because you can lose, not pay your rent, get evicted. Now you got an eviction on your notice, on your record, so you can't get a new apartment unless it's in another worse hood. Do you see what I'm saying? How it could snowball into even more negative life experiences. And I don't need to explain to y'all, once you get into jail, how crazy and shitty that is. So, yeah. I wanted to kind of share those barriers with y'all. I know sometimes I'm preaching to the choir, but there's other people that come in and listen. But these are some of the barriers that we are put in that leads to our murders. So the combination of the shame and the down low bullshit that comes with men who have a culture of being violent, who have a culture of being violent and murderous against women, because cis women deal with this shit too. People, cis women who are economically disadvantaged and disenfranchised, they deal with some of this bullshit too. You see what I'm saying? It is what it is. It is just they in a culture of being violent against women, and so whatever little protection that cis women have when it, because it's I don't think we are in a world where it is respectable to beat women. Even though it's common, I don't think they hide it because it's not respectable for men to beat women. They do, but they do it behind closed doors. It's very rare. I want to say rare. You see it because we have cameras and shit that's happening now. But usually, men who beat their women, they don't do it in front of people. They do it behind closed doors because it is not a respectable thing for men to beat women. I don't think trans women have that grace because of the idea that we are still men. They engage with us when they want to be violent with us. They engage with us with no kind of reservation because of that fact. And they use it in their advantage. When we call the police on, when they're trying to kick our ass and we call the police on them, they will immediately tell the police RT, this ain't no woman, this is a man. In the hopes that the police will treat them a different way, because now it's two boys fighting and not a woman and a man. You see what I'm saying? Y'all get that? I hope y'all get that. But add those elements to the barriers and the disparities that comes with being trans, and it creates a culture that makes us vulnerable to harms and make people indifferent about our harms. So I say all of that to say this. If you are trying to change, if you are somebody doing activist work, or if you're somebody, not just activist work, because you don't have to be an activist to affect trans lives. If you are somebody who is to intentionally wanting your life to create a world that is less transphobic, wherever you have the power, what you should be trying to do is create tangible survival mechanisms for trans people. Tangible, not theoretical. Tangible things that are actually impactful. The efficacy is proven. Things that actually work. And I can't get. There's so many things that you could do. There's so many things. I would have to know your particular circumstance. If you are a therapist and you are not seeing any trans clients, how are you opening up your practice to trans people or marketing to trans people? If you are a hiring manager somewhere, how are you opening up the position to qualify trans people? How are you getting trans people the access to the education and the training to be qualified for that position? Are you pushing that information and that education to trans people to be able to use? Are you in a church committee that wants to be more inclusive to trans people? How are you marketing that? How are you reaching out to the communities for that, to let them know that your church is a safe place? Because it's not going to be automatically something that we know because of the harms that your church has inflicted for centuries. So how are you letting the community know? Are you in community with us? Are you Are you letting us know? How are you doing that? You can't just say, "Oh, I want to be inclusive," and not actually do the outreach. You got to do the outreach. And these are just examples. I don't know your situation as a person, and nothing is too small. I want that to be clear as well. Nothing is too small. Wherever you have the power to be impactful, that is where you have to be impactful. Wherever it is, you don't have to be some big politician. Da, 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 da. Wherever you are in your circle of people, how are you making that space where you have the power? We know that there are certain situations that you don't have the power in, but I'm talking about places where you have the power. So there's no excuse. I said places where you have the power, even if that is your home. How are you making these places that you run a safe place for trans people? So thank y'all for listening to my TED Talk. No, I think it's really really important for us to really take the power back in our own circles. Um, I remember when I worked at Bath and Body Works, when I was not the hiring manager, there were no trans people other than me, and I was stealth. But when I became the store manager, half of the staff was queer, four trans people. Some passable, some not. The racially diverse. My whole staff was identity diverse, racially diverse, gender diverse, everything. Because diversity isn't just race. Diversity is sex, gender identity, queerness, colors, whatever. It's so diverse. Language. My staff was diverse as hell because that was the goal that I was going for when I became the boss, when I became the power. Get it? When I could make the decisions on who would be hired. I need the white girls, I need the Asian girls, I needed the Latina girls, I needed trans, I needed gay men, I needed a lesbian, I needed the studs, I needed everybody. Because when you got a diverse crowd, people feel safe, usually, unless they racist. So yes. All right. Make sure y'all thumbs up if you are watching. This is the first time I ever looked at it and it matches. What? 33 people watching and 33 people thumbs up? Come on. I know that's right. That is what's up. Oh, now it's surpassing. I love it. Love it, 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 love it. All right, so we're gonna open to up the floor. I think somebody asked me. I remember your question, Justin. Somebody asked me had I seen Wakanda. I did see Wakanda. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one, but I did enjoy it. I know this was going to be a lot of the, just a Chadwick Boseman memorial situation, and so yeah. Um, but yes, I did see it. I enjoyed it. Um, Justin, you asked, how can somebody get? What did you ask about activism? How do you get started in activism? It reminds me of Tony McDade and how his family got money after he died and he couldn't stay with them, yeah, when he was alive, which how he ended up where he was, yes, in the first place. Absolutely. It's very similar situations. Let me think. How to get involved in activism. I think it goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. Whatever your circle, whatever you do, how can you let me give you a perfect example. So there is this professor in Virginia, she's in Virginia or North Carolina, somewhere, I can't remember. No, I think she's at University of Virginia. Her name is Elisa Wolford. No black man erasure in the movie. Child, black men are sometimes cishet black men are sometimes incorrigible. I don't. I'll be like, child, y'all are whack. Um, Lisa Wolford. So she is a professor at University of Virginia. I think it's Virginia. Anyway, um, she has a podcast called Stitch Please. She sews. She's a sewing lady. So she sews clothes and makes clothes. She buys vintage fabric like Balenciaga fabric and just vintage fabric and make her own clothes with the sickening, you know, fabric shit. So this is what she does. So recently, she has been a part of this sewing community. And when she got into the community, it wasn't a lot of black people. And so what she started to do, she went and self-advocated in this circle of people, white women, and said, y'all have a problem, y'all have a race problem. Y'all don't there's tons of black people that sew, but clearly they don't feel welcome here because y'all not doing anything, that's geared towards making them feel welcome. So can y'all give me some resources so I can do that? And so she started in within this conference space, So Black. So SUSEW. So Black. And so she says, so she that's her activism. She's bringing black people into her hobby into this situation. And I give that as an example because nobody had done that so far. And so you have to go into, for you have to find out what your thing is. Find out what you can do. Now, if you just want to be a volunteer somewhere, like if you want to be like you just want to be a volunteer, go to your local LGBT organizations that is black or trans led, and honey, they will put you to work. If you just want to be a volunteer, you can do that. That's easy. Just go to the location and say, hey, I want to be a volunteer. You can go to their website and say, ooh, usually everybody got a tab that say volunteer. And so you put your email in. If they need volunteers, they will send an email out and you go volunteer. That's something easy. But I'm talking about something that you would be interested in. Whatever your hobbies are, whatever your job is, whatever you do that you see some disparity in the community happening within that, how can you fix it within that position, within that hobby? How can you fix it? Figure out a way. Now you're an activist. Figure out a way to fix it. Figure out a way to fix it. Figure out a way to get some money to figure out how to fix it. Get some funding for it. And it don't cost a lot. Funding could be $300. Funding could be $5,000. Funding could be $2 million. It depends on what you're trying to do. Like one year, I was doing really really well. My checks was fat. My everything was really sticky that year. I have I have an African lady. She is new here. She's new to America, and she lives in my apartment complex. And she was raising two little girls. These little girls come from school. They are so respectful, and nice, and they're just really nice little girls. And so I told her because I was doing really well that year. She just walked. She was walking past, and I told her I wanted to sponsor her kids for Christmas. And that's what I did that one year because I could afford it that year. And I told her give me a list of things that she wanted me to buy for her. And whatever I could afford on the list that she gave me, I bought. And so these are things that you can do. It don't take within your range. Like it doesn't take a lot. You just have to decide that I am setting aside this amount of time for my activism, this amount of money, this amount of skill. And you don't have to have money. If you don't have money, you can donate your skill. Like whatever you do that is your skill, how can you donate? I remember this guy, he's a carpenter. He's a carpenter. And so what he started doing, he started donating his time and skill to build ramps for newly disabled people. And he was doing that on his own. He didn't have the money to do it, but anybody who had the money that wanted him to build it for him, he would use his skill and his time to build the ramp for them. They can spend their money to go to the Home Depot, but he would volunteer to do it for them. Instead of them paying a contractor, he would do it. You see what I'm saying? And that was his way of giving back. I remember when I was in a group home, one of our staff members had got shot. He got robbed at an ATM, shot and paralyzed. We we went through this organization called Youth as Resources, and they literally taught us how to make a budget, literally, and which is probably why I'm a fucking ED now, because I grew up getting these skills to learn how to do what I'm doing now. It's like life just said, as long as I followed the path, it is what it is. Anyway, um, they taught us how to make a budget down to the penny, what we needed to do, figure out what we needed to make him a ramp for his house. And we literally sent it to somebody and asked them, basically a foundation. We sent it to multiple people, a foundation, and it was probably gonna cost us, I can't remember what that ramp cost. Whatever that ramp cost, it wasn't a lot. It was like $2,000. It $1,500, $2,000, I can't remember. But it wasn't a lot. And we got that project funded just like that. We gave them a sob story. It was real. It wasn't a sad. It was sad, but it wasn't fake. We didn't have to embellish anything. Our staff member was shot, getting robbed, and is paralyzed now. And his house is not accessible to him now that he's on a wheelchair. And because he's one of our favorite staff members, he was not. I hated him. But the opportunity was a beautiful opportunity for me as a kid. Um, he We just told him the story and told this is what the budget is. This is da, 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 and they funded it. And we went and built him a ramp. That's activism. That's activism. It's so many layers of what you can do, um, of of you know of opportunities out here, of what you can do, what you can get involved in. There's so many layers, Justin. You got it. I will definitely volunteer. I also offer spiritual advice. I caught another reader I know talking shit about her trans client, and that's made me know I need to focus on the community. Mm. Yeah, so many shitty people out here. But what else? But that's about it, y'all. This is right on time. 2:12. Um, yeah. Like I said, I want to. What do you think about the Keela Robinson situation? I'm still looking at that. I think her friends are very shitty, and Mexico not just announced, like it was announced, but they just said that it was a murder. It wasn't no fucking accident. So somebody about to go to jail or gonna have some warrants in Mexico or something. I don't know. but um, but yeah, that shit is crazy. It was wild to me. I haven't got totally into the story, but I see it's going viral and it's wild. Had a broken neck and spine. Yeah, it's wild. I'll probably talk about that next week, but I want to get more on the subject. Check out Diamond's feature on Killer Cycle Live with Candace DeLong. You may need an Amazon Prime subscription. Oh, I'm not for sure. I don't. I do have Amazon Prime, so I might not have known about it. Yeah, I was doing that. What have I done anything else this week? Oh, I announcement. I am on the board of directors of Transgender Law Center. One of the funded, biggest funded, and really impactful organizations for trans legal progression. I love them, and so they invited me to the board, and yeah, I interviewed and I made it. Oh, good. I remember that. I remember the BGC forums. Oh, link that, please, Brandon. Yes. So Chasing Thread is coming back in January. So y'all know I have a podcast that focuses trans um on trans issues. I always wanted a podcast that doesn't focus on trans issues because I almost say it gets boring, but I get tired of talking about disparity sometimes. I want to talk about stuff like I do on here. I talk about different stuff on here. That's why I love my lives. I can talk about whatever. But so me and my friend Chance created a podcast about fashion where we explore cultural events through fashion, through the fashion that revolved around the event. So we did hip hop and Versace. We did Rihanna. Um, we did the Clinton affair, which was one of my favorite episodes. The Clinton affair. We did. Let me try to find. Um, Let me see. I found it. That was hard to find. So that is the Chasing Thread podcast that we did, and we have one about Rihanna when she started her new venture in. She was about to be, I think she had a Louis Vuitton deal or something like that. The Clinton affair, um, Versace, and Serena. We talked about Nicki Minaj and Cardi B, just all kinds of stuff. We have 5 episodes, introduction episodes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, it's 5 in total. And we have agreed to continue. We're gonna come back because Chance was going through a depression. Chance was going through a depression, um, and he ended up moving to Oklahoma, Denver, and then somewhere else. But he ended up just settling for shit that he didn't want, and so he's back in a better space now. So we wanna continue. Yeah, it's called Chasing Threads. Chasing threads, like threads from clothes. Chasing threads. So we basically are using fashion to talk about events and the culture through fashion. Listen to the first episode. Listen to the one about the Clinton affair. If you are of my age range, um, the Clinton affair, when we were younger, we didn't really know what was going on. Like we knew it was something, but this was kind of grown folks' business. And so it was amazing to explore the Clinton affair as an adult who done been through some shit. And so I love the Clinton affair one. I love the one about Versace and hip hop. We really explore the connection of how a lot of these brands that we see nowadays, Black people saved them. You could really update the Cardi versus Nicki episode because that's still going on. So yeah, it's a I love that podcast. It was a new adventure. I love podcasting. I love conversation, and I love conversating with conversating. I love conversing with other people. And I love other people who have like strong opinions and who can talk about their opinions. And some people have strong opinions and they're stupid. But people who have strong opinions and can talk through them and explain why thoroughly, I love people like that. And so yeah, so that is what's going on now. What else? Oh, BTAC is coming back this year. Black Trans Advocacy Conference. It is going to be amazing, y'all. This is my first time where I am the ED, that I get to steer what happens, and we have, you know, um, just the opportunity to, you know, show up and show out. If you have never heard of the Black Trans Advocacy Conference, it's a conference for people who want to be educated about trans people. It is a conference for trans people, but cis people come to and learn. Um, there we have basically three different tracks. We have a track for trans women, a track for trans men, and a track for non-binary folks. Um, I run Empower Her, and it's the track that is for trans women or trans femmes. And basically we have a award ceremony where it's kind of like a formal, so you got to get dressed up. It's like a prom, kind of like a prom, and we give awards out, and we also have how do I explain that? We also awards and awards dinner and entertainment, and it's just this big old thing. Well, we when we started it, we used it as, if you are a trans person who did not go to your prom and you wanted to go to your prom in your affirming clothes, now you have a chance, because it is a formal gala and people show up and show out. We love it. We have a family day on Saturday. It's usually on Friday. Family day on Saturday, where we rent out a whole ranch, a whole Texas ranch, and it has a swimming pool, and we have games. People, we were last year, we was last not last year, but the year last year we had it. We had to stop because of COVID. Last year we had it. We had a kickball tournament, kickball, y'all. A kickball tournament. We had a spades tournament, and a dominoes tournament. We have a barbecue. We have tons of like all the black barbecue stuff, ribs, sausage, macaroni and cheese, baked beans, coleslaw, all the summer family reunion barbecue shit. We have that. That's on Saturday, Family Day, where we rent like two or three buses and ship everybody at the hotel. We put you in the bus and we take you to the take you to the ranch, and we stay on the ranch all day, and it's just super super fire. Also, the beginning part is the more education. The beginning part of the conference is more educational, and so it's tons of workshops that are happening. Workshops, like people who BTAC is in Dallas. Yes, it is. It is in Dallas, Texas, and we have it at an amazing hotel. We're going to be at the DoubleTree this year. The low vibration plates, yes, baby, delicious. We have tons of workshops. So if you are an educator and you would love to pro bono, come to Dallas and give a workshop or give a talk or share whatever expertise you have. You can. We'll be opening up the workshop proposal site in a couple of weeks. Yes, if you can come to Dallas, you can register. I think the site is for you to register. The early bird closes. The registration fee is cheaper if you do the early bird special. Let's see if I can find it. Yes. The early bird special is now, mind you, you can come to the conference for free. Like if you can come, it doesn't cost to come. What cost is the stuff. Like you can come and experience the workshops and shit for free. But what costs is the fun stuff, like the gala, the the events that go along with the conference stuff. But the workshops is free. You can come and get the education all you want. And the hanging out, the summits, that stuff is free. You can just come. If you can you know, get away to Dallas, you can just come. It's free. But how we pay for it is the events. I just linked the website for you to check it out. Um, the dates is April 25th through April 30th. Next year. So the early bird special, which I just linked for registration for, that includes there are different specials that will make it cheaper for you to get connected to all the other stuff. You see what I'm saying? All the other stuff that you do, it'll be cheaper to go through with the registration because it's some certain levels of registration comes with different tickets and access. Um, Tickets to the gala, reserved seating, and all the features that comes with that. So but it's gonna be dope. This is our 10-year anniversary, so we gonna be turning up. We launched in 2011, but because of COVID, we couldn't do our official 10-year anniversary. And y'all know 10-year anniversary, the theme is diamond honey. So y'all know I'm a big sickening. I'm gonna be diamond out, rhinestoned out, honey. Um, yeah. But anyway, we've been on here for 2.5 hours. So make sure y'all thumbs up. If you're watching this later, thumbs up. Make sure you share. I think this was a great live. And I will see y'all next week. I think I am gonna talk about that Shonette, that girl, Shaquila Robinson situation. I think I am going to talk about that once I dive into what happened with her. Because there's a couple of incidents where black women have been murdered on trips with people. Remember that girl with the that was out with the white people and she ended up dying? That was on a trip with the white people and she mysteriously died. All that kind of stuff. I'm gonna kind of look into that and maybe talk about it next Friday. But anyway, y'all, I will talk to y'all next Friday. See y'all later. Bye bye.